I arrived at St. Augustine's Cathedral at 9:30 in the morning, 90 minutes before my brother Jason's wedding was scheduled to begin. The church was a beautiful old building in the historic district, all Gothic architecture and stained glass windows that caught the morning light and threw patterns of color across the stone floor. The kind of place that cost a fortune to book, the kind of place that made a statement about the people getting married. I'd dressed carefully that morning, a simple charcoal suit I'd bought off the rack at Macy's, a white shirt, a burgundy tie that my roommate David had helped me pick out because I was hopeless at matching colors. Nothing fancy, nothing expensive, but clean and respectful, appropriate for a wedding. The parking lot was already half full with cars that were decidedly not off the rack. Mercedes, BMWs, a Tesla, what looked like a Porsche near the front entrance, the bride's family mostly. The Harringtons were old money, not billionaire status, but comfortable enough that they'd never had to worry about things like student loans or medical bills or whether they could afford to fix their car when it broke down. My family was different. We'd grown up in a small apartment on the south side of the city, my mother working 2 jobs to keep us fed and clothed after our father left when Jason and I were 7 and 9. Jason had gotten a full scholarship to state school, graduated with honors, landed a job at a consulting firm where he'd met Melissa Harrington. Within 2 years, they were engaged. Within 3, he'd moved into a world I barely recognized. I walked through the massive wooden doors of the cathedral and into the vestibule. A wedding planner in a sleek black dress was directing a team of people setting up flowers. Massive arrangements of white roses and peonies that probably cost more than my monthly rent. She glanced at me, did a quick assessment, and her expression shifted to something polite but dismissive. "Excuse me," she said, approaching with a clipboard. "Are you with the caterers? The service entrance is around back." "I'm the groom's brother," I said. Her expression flickered. Surprise, maybe embarrassment, though she covered it quickly. "Oh, I apologize. I didn't realize. You must be Samuel?" "Sam, yeah." "Of course. Welcome." She consulted her clipboard. "You're seated on the groom's side, naturally. Family section, 3rd row. The ceremony begins at 11, but the bridal party is doing photos starting at 10, if you'd like to." "Sam!" I turned to see my mother hurrying across the vestibule, already dressed in the navy dress she'd bought for the occasion, her hair done at a salon for the first time I could remember. She hugged me tight, and I could feel her trembling slightly. "You made it," she said. "I was worried you'd be late." "I'm an hour and a half early, Mom." I know. I'm just nervous. This is such a big day. Such an important day." She pulled back to look at me. "You look handsome. Very handsome." "Thanks." "You look beautiful." "This dress was too expensive," she said automatically, the same thing she'd been saying since she'd bought it 3 weeks ago. "But Jason insisted. He said he wanted me to look nice for the photos." "The photos?" "Right." We walked into the main sanctuary together. The cathedral was stunning. Vaulted ceilings that seemed to reach toward heaven, rows of dark wooden pews, more of those stained glass windows casting their colored light across everything. At the front, a small army of people was setting up for the ceremony. More flowers, ribbons, candles, a string quartet in the corner, tuning their instruments. Jason was there, standing near the altar with his best man Marcus and 2 groomsmen I didn't recognize. He was wearing a tuxedo that had definitely been custom-tailored, his hair perfectly styled, looking every inch the successful young professional he'd become. When he saw me, his face lit up, and he started walking over. "Sam, you made it." He hugged me, and it felt genuine despite everything that had changed between us over the past 3 years. "I wasn't sure you'd come." "Of course I came. You're my brother." "I know, He glanced back toward where Melissa's family was gathered near the front pews. "Things have been complicated, with the wedding planning and everything. I know Melissa's family can be a bit much. It's fine. I'm here to support you. That means a lot." He lowered his voice. "Listen, about the bachelor party. I'm sorry I didn't invite you. Melissa's brothers planned the whole thing, and it was all their friends and colleagues, and I should have pushed back, but... Jason, it's okay, really. It's not okay. You're my brother. You should have been there." He looked uncomfortable, caught between worlds. "But you're here now. That's what matters. And hey, the photographer is going to start family photos in about 20 minutes. Make sure you're around for that, okay?" "I will be." He clapped me on the shoulder and returned to his groomsmen, leaving me standing there with my mother, who'd been watching the exchange with an expression I couldn't quite read. "He's nervous," she said quietly. "About the wedding. About everything. He's marrying into a different world, Mom. That would make anyone nervous." "They're not better than us," she said, a flash of the fierceness I remembered from childhood. The way she'd defended us against teachers who'd dismissed us, landlords who'd tried to take advantage, anyone who'd suggested we were less than because we had less. Don't let them make you feel like they are. I won't. Before we get into it, don't forget to like and subscribe, and hit hype to boost this episode. Drop a comment below with your city or country. I'm always curious where viewers are joining from, but even as I said it, I could feel the stares from Melissa's family. The Harringtons were clustered near the front. Her parents, Richard and Patricia, her brothers, Bradley and Jonathan, her grandmother, a severe-looking woman in pearls who'd apparently been a judge at some point and never let anyone forget it. They were looking at me the way you might look at something unexpected and vaguely unpleasant, like a stain on an otherwise perfect tablecloth. The next 20 minutes passed in a blur of last-minute preparations. More guests arrived, filling the pews, greeting each other with the kind of casual familiarity that comes from moving in the same social circles. I recognized a few faces from Jason's life, his boss, some colleagues from the consulting firm, friends from college. None of them recognized me. Why would they? I'd been systematically excluded from his new life, present only at mandatory family functions, the embarrassing reminder of where he'd come from. At 10 a.m., the photographer appeared, a woman in her 40s with 3 cameras around her neck and an assistant carrying additional equipment. She conferred briefly with the wedding planner, then clapped her hands. All right, everyone. We're going to start with family photos. Can I have the immediate families front and center, please? That's parents, siblings, grandparents. Everyone else, please step back to give us some room. I moved forward with my mother. Jason was already at the front, looking slightly uncomfortable. And then Melissa appeared from a side room where she'd apparently been getting ready, and the entire energy of the space shifted. She looked beautiful. I had to give her that. The wedding dress was elaborate, layers of white silk and lace that probably cost more than a year of my salary, her hair and makeup done by professionals, a veil that flowed behind her like something from a fairy tale. She looked like she'd stepped out of a bridal magazine, which was probably exactly the look she'd been going for. She was flanked by her parents and her bridesmaids, sorority sisters from her college days, all of them looking like variations on the same theme of polished, privileged beauty. They moved as a unit, a wall of expensive perfume and designer dresses, surrounding Melissa like a protective barrier between her and the rest of the world. All right, the photographer called out. Let's start with the full family group. Bride's family on the left, groom's family on the right, everyone squeeze in close. I moved to stand next to Jason. My mother was on his other side, standing a little stiffly, clearly uncomfortable with all the attention. Marcus, the best man, was next to me. And then the Harringtons arranged themselves on Melissa's side, Richard and Patricia flanking her brothers beside them, her grandmother taking a position of prominence in the front. The photographer looked through her camera, made some adjustments. Perfect. Everyone hold still. Big smiles. This is a happy day. I smiled. The flash went off. The photographer checked her camera, nodded with satisfaction. Great. Now let's do bride's family only. The Harringtons remained where they were. Jason, my mother, Marcus, and I stepped back to give them space. The photographer took several shots, each one looking more posed and perfect than the last. Melissa and her family knew how to present themselves for a camera, how to angle their faces, where to put their hands, how to create the impression of effortless elegance. Wonderful. Now groom's family. Jason moved back into position. My mother stepped forward nervously. I started to join them. And that's when Melissa stepped directly in front of me. She was smiling, but it didn't reach her eyes. Up close, I could see the tension in her jaw, the calculation in her expression. She turned to the photographer without looking at me. Actually, she said, her voice carrying across the cathedral in that clear, projected way that suggested she wanted everyone to hear, we don't want his kind in our photos. The words landed like a physical blow. Around us, conversation stopped mid-sentence. People turned to look. My mother's face went white. Jason's expression shifted from confusion to horror. Melissa, he started. Jason, honey, these photos are going to be displayed at the reception. They're going to be in our house. They're going to be what we show our children someday. She still hadn't looked at me, addressing the photographer and the gathered crowd as if I wasn't standing right there. We want them to be perfect, to represent our family properly. And that means? She made a vague gesture in my direction. Well, you understand. Patricia, her mother, stepped forward. Melissa is right. These are formal family photos. They should reflect a certain standard, a certain presentation. Sam is Jason's brother, my mother said, and her voice was shaking but firm. He's family. He belongs in these photos. Mrs. Morrison, Patricia said, and the way she said it made our last name sound like something distasteful. I'm sure you understand that we're trying to maintain a certain aesthetic for this wedding. We've invested a great deal of money. I don't care about your money, my mother interrupted, louder now. That's my son. Both of them are my sons. If Sam isn't in the photos, then neither am I. For a moment, I thought Jason would stand up for me. I watched his face, saw him struggling with the decision, saw him look between Melissa and me, between his new family and his old one. Mom, he said quietly, maybe it's better if Sam just steps back for a few of the photos. Not all of them, just some, the ones that will be most prominently displayed. Something broke inside me when he said that. Not dramatically, not with any outward sign, but something fundamental shifted. Some last vestige of hope that my brother would choose me over them. It's fine, I said, and my voice came out calmer than I felt. I'll step aside. Sam, my mother started. It's fine, Mom, really. Take the photos. I'll wait over here. I walked away from the group, feeling the stares following me. I heard Melissa say something to the photographer, heard scattered laughter from her bridesmaids. I heard Jason trying to smooth things over with my mother, heard Marcus say something angry under his breath. I walked out through the vestibule, past the wedding planner who pretended she hadn't witnessed what just happened, past the florist who was doing a terrible job of hiding her eavesdropping. I walked out through those massive wooden doors and into the parking lot, into the June sunshine that felt too bright and cheerful for how I felt. My hands were shaking, my chest felt tight. I stood there for a moment, trying to process what had just happened, trying to decide what to do next. Then I pulled out my phone and made a call. He answered on the second ring, his voice warm and familiar. Sam, I wasn't expecting to hear from you today. Isn't it your brother's wedding? Yeah, it is. Are you busy right now? Never too busy for you. What's wrong? You sound upset. They don't want me in the family photos. The bride said she doesn't want my kind ruining them. Silence on the other end. Then, are they treating you badly again? Worse than usual. Where are you? St. Augustine's Cathedral, downtown. I'll be there in 15 minutes. Don't move. Mr. Harrison, you don't have to. Sam. His voice was firm now. I'll be there in 15 minutes. He hung up. I stood there in the parking lot, phone in my hand, and waited. Chapter 2. The Return. Robert Harrison arrived in exactly 14 minutes, pulling up in a black Mercedes S-Class that probably cost more than most of the cars in the parking lot combined. He was 72 years old, but moved like a man 20 years younger, getting out of the driver's seat with the confident ease of someone who'd never had to worry about whether people would listen to him. He'd earned that confidence, built a real estate empire from nothing, put himself through night school while working construction, became one of the most successful developers in the state through sheer intelligence and relentless work ethic. He was also my mentor, though that word didn't quite capture the relationship. My boss, technically. I'd been working at his company for the past 4 years, starting as an assistant and working my way up to project coordinator. But also my friend, my advocate, the person who'd seen potential in me when I was just a kid with a community college degree and no connections. Sam, he said, walking over with his characteristic brisk stride. He was wearing a charcoal suit that was definitely custom-tailored, probably Italian, certainly expensive. His silver hair was perfectly groomed. He looked every inch the successful businessman he was. Tell me what happened. I explained the situation, the exclusion from photos, Melissa's comment, Jason's unwillingness to defend me. He listened without interrupting, his expression growing progressively darker. These people have no idea who you are, he said when I finished. No idea what you've accomplished or what you're capable of. They see your clothes, your background, and they make assumptions. I know. Do they know I exist? That you work for me? Jason knows I work in real estate development. I don't think he knows who my boss is or how involved you've been in my career. He's never asked for details. Robert's expression shifted to something that might have been disgust. Your brother is a fool, and his future wife is worse. He looked toward the cathedral. Is the ceremony starting soon? In about 40 minutes. Good. Gives us time. He pulled out his phone and made a call. Margaret, I need you to pull some files for me. The Harrington-Morrison wedding package. Everything. Contracts, payment schedules, all of it. Email them to my phone in the next 5 minutes. He listened for a moment. Because I'm about to educate some people on the cost of cruelty. Thank you, Margaret. He hung up and turned back to me. When I found out your brother was getting married, I wanted to do something for you, for your family. You've been like a son to me these past 4 years, and I know how important Jason is to you despite everything, so I made some arrangements. What kind of arrangements? The kind that mean the Harringtons didn't pay for nearly as much of this wedding as they think they did. He smiled, but it wasn't a kind smile. "Come on, let's go inside. I think it's time I met your family." We walked back into the cathedral together. I could feel the shift in energy immediately, the way people's eyes tracked Robert as he entered, the way conversations paused mid-sentence, the subtle adjusting of posture that happens when someone obviously important walks into a room. The wedding party was still at the front of the church, having apparently moved on from family photos to bridal party photos. Melissa was posing with her bridesmaids, her laugh too loud and performative. Jason was with his groomsmen, looking uncomfortable. My mother was sitting in the front pew by herself, her face still drawn and upset. The wedding planner spotted us first. She hurried over, clearly trying to place Robert, her professional smile faltering when she couldn't figure out if he was a VIP guest or a crasher. "Excuse me, gentlemen, can I help you with something? The ceremony doesn't start for another—" She stopped mid-sentence, her eyes going wide. "Mr. Harrison? Robert Harrison?" "That's right," he said pleasantly. "I'm here as Sam's guest. Is that going to be a problem?" No, of course not. I didn't realize you'd be attending. Your name wasn't on the guest list?" "It wasn't originally, no, but plans change. Now I'd like to speak with the Harrington family. Could you point me in their direction?" She looked between us, clearly trying to calculate what was happening and whether she should be worried. "They're just finishing up photos. If you'd like to wait—" "I don't mind interrupting," Robert said, and started walking toward the front of the church without waiting for permission. I followed him, my heart pounding. People were definitely staring now, whispers spreading through the gathered guests. Someone said, "Is that Robert Harrison?" Someone else said, "What's he doing here?" We reached the front just as the photographer was positioning Melissa's grandmother for what was apparently the final shot. Richard Harrington saw us approaching, and his expression shifted from irritation at the interruption to confusion to something that might have been recognition. "Mr. Harrison," he said, stepping forward with his hand extended, his tone shifting to the kind of obsequious friendliness people use with those they perceive as important. "I didn't realize you were attending." "What an honor. I'm Richard Harrington. This is my wife Patricia, our daughter Melissa—" "I know who you are," Robert interrupted, not taking the offered hand. "And I'm not attending. I'm here because of what your daughter said to my employee." Richard's smile faltered. "Your employee?" "Sam Morrison." Robert gestured to me. "He's been working for me for 4 years. Started as an assistant, currently serves as project coordinator on several major developments. He's one of the most talented young people I've had the privilege of working with, and your daughter just publicly humiliated him by saying she didn't want his kind in her wedding photos." The color drained from Richard's face. Patricia's hand went to her mouth. Melissa was staring at me like she was seeing me for the first time, her expression cycling through shock, disbelief, and dawning horror. Jason pushed through the crowd of groomsmen. "Sam? What's going on? Who is this?" "This is Robert Harrison," I said quietly. "My boss." "Your boss? You work for Robert Harrison?" Jason looked between us. How did I not know this? "You never asked," I said simply. Robert's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, nodded with satisfaction. "Perfect timing. Let me show you all something interesting." He pulled up an email on his phone and turned it so Richard could see the screen. "This is a breakdown of the expenses for today's wedding. As you can see, the venue rental was $45,000. The catering package was another $32,000. The flowers were $18,000. The photographer, the musicians, the wedding planner. All in all, we're looking at about $175,000 for this event." "I don't understand," Patricia said, but her voice suggested she was beginning to understand exactly what was happening. "Why are you showing us this?" "Because you didn't pay for most of it," Robert said bluntly. "According to my records, the Harrington family contributed approximately $42,000 to this wedding. The honeymoon package to Italy that you gave as your gift, that was another $15,000, also from your accounts. So in total, you've invested about $57,000 into this wedding and honeymoon." That's a substantial contribution," Richard said defensively. "We're proud to support our daughter." "I'm sure you are, but you seem to be under the impression that you paid for the bulk of this event. You didn't. I did." The silence that followed was absolute. Even the string quartet seemed to have stopped playing. Every person in that cathedral was watching this unfold, phones out, recording, bearing witness. "What?" Melissa's voice came out as barely more than a whisper. Robert looked at her directly for the first time. "When I found out Sam's brother was getting married, I wanted to do something meaningful. Sam has become like family to me, so I made some arrangements through intermediaries. The venue, I own the building. I arranged for it to be available and reduced the rental fee to almost nothing. The caterer? One of my business partners, who gave you the friends and family rate at my request. The photographer, the flowers, the musicians. I made calls, pulled in favors, got you prices that were about 40% of what you would have paid otherwise. The honeymoon package you think you gave as a gift? The travel agency that arranged it is owned by my daughter. We subsidized about 60% of the actual cost. He paused, letting that sink in. In total, I estimate my contributions to this wedding, both direct and indirect, amount to roughly $118,000. More than twice what your family invested. I did this because I care about Sam and wanted his brother to have a beautiful wedding. I did this quietly because I didn't want credit or recognition. I just wanted to help. Patricia was crying now, tears streaking her perfect makeup. Richard looked like he'd been punched in the stomach. Melissa was staring at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. Horror, shame, disbelief all mixed together. Jason had gone completely white. Mr. Harrison, I had no idea. Sam never mentioned... Because Sam is humble and doesn't feel the need to advertise his connections or accomplishments, Robert interrupted. Unlike some people who seem to think that money and status give them the right to treat others as inferior, unlike a bride who would publicly exclude her fiancé's brother from family photos because she doesn't think he's good enough for her carefully curated aesthetic. I didn't know, Melissa said, her voice rising, tinged with panic. I didn't know he worked for you. I didn't know about any of this. And that makes it better? Robert's voice was cold. You didn't know his professional background or his connections, so you felt entitled to insult him? If you'd known he worked for me, you would have treated him with respect, but because you assumed he was nobody important, you could be cruel without consequences? That's not what I meant. That's exactly what you meant. Robert turned to Richard. Let me be very clear about something. The contributions I made to this wedding were contingent on Sam being treated with respect and included as family. That was the agreement, even if it wasn't written down in any contract you signed. By excluding him from photos and making bigoted comments about his kind, your daughter has violated that agreement. What are you saying? Richard asked, though his expression suggested he knew exactly what was being said. I'm saying that I'm withdrawing my support. The venue? You'll need to pay the full rental fee. The actual market rate is about $90,000 for an event of this size, and you currently owe the balance. The caterer? I'll be calling to let them know they should charge full price rather than the discounted rate. Same with the photographer, the florist, the musicians. Every vendor I helped you with, every favor I pulled in, every discount I arranged, all of it is now null and void. You can't do that, Patricia shrieked. The ceremony is in half an hour. The guests are already here. You can't just... I can, and I am. You wanted to exclude someone from your family photos because you didn't think he met your standards. Well, you've now excluded yourself from significant financial support because you failed to meet my standards of basic human decency. Bradley, one of Melissa's brothers, stepped forward. He was a lawyer, I remembered. This is extortion. You can't withdraw support for services already rendered based on personal grievances. This isn't extortion. This is consequence. Robert pulled out another document from his phone. I suggest you read the fine print on all those contracts you signed. The reduced rates were specifically contingent on maintaining certain standards of conduct at the event. I included that language in every single agreement. You violate those standards, you pay full price. It's all perfectly legal. Ask your lawyer. He glanced at Bradley. Oh, wait. You are a lawyer, so you should know this is completely above board. Jason finally found his voice. Mr. Harrison, please. I understand you're upset, and you have every right to be. But this is my wedding. These people are my guests, my family. Can we talk about this? Work something out? We can absolutely talk about it, Robert said, right after your fiancé apologizes to Sam, sincerely, publicly, in front of everyone here. All eyes turned to Melissa. She was crying openly now, her perfect makeup running, her carefully constructed image crumbling. She looked at me, and I saw genuine fear in her eyes. Not fear of me, but fear of the consequences of her actions, fear of public humiliation, fear of her perfect wedding falling apart. I'm sorry, she said, but it came out choked, unconvincing. You're sorry you got caught, Robert said flatly. You're sorry there are consequences. You're not sorry for what you said or how you treated him. Try again. Melissa looked at her parents, at Jason, at her bridesmaids, as if hoping someone would rescue her. No one moved. Finally, she turned back to me. Sam, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for what I said, for excluding you from the photos, for... She faltered, seemed to reach for words. For being cruel and judgmental and treating you like you didn't matter. You're Jason's brother. You should have been treated like family. I was wrong. It still didn't sound entirely sincere. It sounded like someone who'd been backed into a corner and was saying what they needed to say to escape, but it was something. I looked at Robert, who raised an eyebrow. "Your call," his expression said. "I accept your apology," I said quietly. "But I'm not staying for the ceremony." "Sam," Jason started. "You had a choice," I interrupted, and I was proud that my voice didn't shake. "When she said she didn't want me in the photos, you had a choice. You could have stood up for me. You could have told her that I'm your brother, and either I'm included or she needs to reconsider her priorities. But you didn't. You asked me to step aside to make things easier, so I'm making things easier now. I'm stepping aside completely." "Please don't do this," Jason said, and he was crying now too. "You're my brother. I need you here." "You needed me 10 minutes ago when I was being humiliated. You didn't show up for me then, so I'm not showing up for you now." I turned to Robert. "Can we go?" "Absolutely." He looked at the assembled crowd, at the Harringtons still frozen in shock, at the photographer who'd witnessed everything. "I'll have my assistant send updated invoices to reflect the actual costs of your vendors. You'll want to contact your bank about increasing your available credit." "Oh, and the honeymoon package?" "That's canceled. You'll need to make your own arrangements if you still want to go to Italy." "You can't cancel our honeymoon," Melissa said, her voice rising to a near shriek. "I can, and I did. It was booked through my daughter's agency at a massive discount as a gift to Sam's family. That gift is now revoked." He pulled a business card from his pocket and handed it to Jason. "If you ever want to have a real conversation about how you treated your brother and why that was unacceptable, call me. Maybe I'll consider restoring some of the arrangements. But not before you've earned it." He turned and started walking toward the exit. I followed him, my mother suddenly appearing at my side. She'd grabbed her purse from the pew and was staying close to me, her hand on my arm. "Sam, wait!" That was Marcus, the best man, pushing through the crowd. "Dude, I'm coming with you. That was fucked up. All of it. I'm not staying for this." "Marcus, you're the best man. I'm Jason's friend, yeah, but I'm not standing up for someone who wouldn't stand up for his own brother. Let me grab my jacket." He disappeared for a moment and returned with his suit jacket, now walking with us as we headed for the exit. Other people were starting to move too. Some of the guests from the groom's side, people who'd apparently decided this wedding wasn't worth attending anymore. We walked out through those massive wooden doors, leaving the cathedral and the expensive flowers and the carefully planned wedding behind us. In the parking lot, Robert turned to my mother. "Mrs. Morrison, I'm Robert Harrison. I've heard wonderful things about you from Sam." "Mr. Harrison." My mother's voice was thick with emotion. "Thank you for what you did in there, for standing up for my son. Sam is a remarkable young man. He shouldn't have to accept being treated as less than by people who are less than him in every way that actually matters." He glanced at me. "I'm sorry your brother's wedding ended this way, but I'm not sorry for what I did." "I'm not either," I said. Behind us, we could hear raised voices from inside the cathedral. The wedding was clearly not proceeding smoothly. I wondered if it would proceed at all. "What happens now?" Marcus asked. "Do we just go home?" "Hell no," Robert said. "We celebrate. I know an excellent restaurant about 20 minutes from here. My treat. We'll have a proper lunch, toast to Sam's dignity and self-respect, and let those people figure out how to salvage their disaster of a wedding." "I like this guy," Marcus said to me. "Yeah," I said. "He's pretty great." We got in our cars, my mother riding with me, Marcus following in his vehicle, Robert leading the way in his Mercedes. As we pulled out of the parking lot, I glanced back at the cathedral one more time, my brother's wedding. The event I'd been excluded from, mocked at, treated as less than. The day that should have been about family and celebration and joy. Instead, it had become something else entirely. A lesson about consequences. A reminder that cruelty has a price. A demonstration that sometimes the people you dismiss as unimportant turn out to be connected to the very things you value most. I didn't feel good about what had happened. I didn't feel victorious or satisfied or pleased with myself, but I didn't feel ashamed anymore either. And that was something. Chapter 3. The Celebration. The restaurant Robert chose was called Marcello's, an upscale Italian place with white tablecloths and candles on every table and waiters in crisp black vests. The kind of place where a salad cost $25 and the wine list had bottles that cost more than my monthly rent. Robert called ahead, and by the time we arrived, they had a private dining room ready for us. "Mr. Harrison," the hostess greeted him warmly, "your usual room is prepared. Please follow me." We walked through the main dining room, which was already beginning to fill with the lunch crowd, and into a smaller room with a single large round table, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking a garden, and lighting that managed to be both elegant and comfortable. This is too much, my mother said quietly to me as we took our seats. We can't let him pay for all this. Mrs. Morrison, Robert said, overhearing. I insist. Consider it a celebration of your son's courage and self-respect. Also, I'm a 72-year-old man with more money than I know what to do with and no grandchildren to spoil. Let me have this. A waiter appeared with menus and a wine list the size of a small book. Robert ordered a bottle of something Italian that the waiter nodded appreciatively about, then encouraged us to order whatever we wanted. My mother chose the cheapest pasta on the menu out of habit. I convinced her to get the lobster ravioli instead. After the waiter left with our orders, we sat in silence for a moment, the adrenaline of the confrontation starting to wear off, replaced with a kind of exhausted disbelief. I can't believe that just happened, Marcus said finally. I mean, I was there, I saw it happen, but I still can't believe it. That was like something from a movie. A movie where the rich guy shows up to save the day, I said. Not exactly original. Hey, don't diminish what happened, Marcus said. That wasn't about money. That was about someone standing up for you when your own brother wouldn't. That was about someone recognizing your value when the people who should have valued you most decided you weren't worth their time. He was right, but it was still difficult to process. I ruined my brother's wedding. You didn't ruin anything, Robert said firmly. Your brother and his fiancée created this situation with their actions and their prejudices. You simply refused to accept being treated poorly. There's a difference. But now the wedding might not happen, or if it does, it'll be in chaos. And they're looking at huge unexpected bills because of me? Because of them, my mother interrupted, more forcefully than I'd expected. Sam, listen to me. What that girl said to you was cruel and unacceptable. What your brother did, or didn't do, when he should have defended you was even worse. Mr. Harrison here gave them a gift, and they threw it back in his face by insulting you. That's on them. The wine arrived, and Robert poured for everyone, including Marcus, who technically wasn't family but had earned his place at this table by walking out of the wedding with us. A toast, Robert said, raising his glass, to Sam Morrison, who reminds me why I do what I do, who started with nothing, worked his way through community college while supporting his family, took every opportunity I gave him and turned it into more than I imagined, who has more integrity and intelligence and genuine worth than any of those people back at that cathedral, despite their money and their pretensions. Hear, hear, Marcus said. We drank, and the wine was probably excellent, though I was too distracted to really taste it. My phone had started buzzing in my pocket, texts and calls coming in rapid succession. I pulled it out and saw messages from people I hadn't heard from in months, colleagues from Jason's firm, friends from college, even some of my cousins. They were all saying variations of the same thing. Did you really just blow up Jason's wedding? Is it true Robert Harrison is your boss? Holy shit, what happened? And then I saw the reason for the sudden influx of messages. Someone had posted video from the cathedral. Multiple someones, actually. The confrontation, Robert's speech, Melissa's forced apology, my decision to leave, all of it was online, spreading across social media in real time. Social media? Robert guessed, seeing my expression. Yeah, the whole thing is online, multiple angles. Good, he said, surprising me. Let people see what happened. Let them draw their own conclusions about who is in the wrong. The truth has a way of settling things. Our food arrived then. Courses of pasta and seafood and vegetables that were beautifully plated and probably delicious, though I barely tasted anything. I was too busy watching my phone as the video spread, as the comments rolled in, as people I'd never met weighed in on what had happened. Most of the comments were supportive. Good for him for walking out. That bride was awful. The brother should have defended him. But there were others, too. He's being overly sensitive. You can't just blow up someone's wedding like that. Rich people problems. Stop reading the comments, Marcus advised. Never read the comments. That way lies madness. He was right. I put my phone face down on the table and tried to focus on the people actually with me rather than the strangers online. We talked through lunch. About the wedding, about Robert's business, about my mother's work at the hospital where she'd been a nurse for 25 years. Robert told stories about building his company, about the mistakes he'd made and the lessons he'd learned. Marcus talked about his friendship with Jason, how it had developed over the years, how he'd watched Jason change as he'd moved up in the consulting world. He wasn't always like this, Marcus said. When we met freshman year of college, he was just a regular guy, smart, ambitious, sure, but grounded. He remembered where he came from. But then he got that job at the consulting firm, started making real money, met Melissa. I watched him slowly start to distance himself from anything that reminded him of his old life, including you. I know, I said quietly. I watched it happen too. I should have said something, Marcus continued. Should have called him out on it. But I didn't want to lose my friend, so I stayed quiet. That makes me complicit in how he treated you, and I'm sorry for that. You literally just walked out of his wedding to support me, I said. I think that more than makes up for not speaking up earlier. My mother had been quiet through most of the meal, but now she reached over and took my hand. I'm proud of you, for walking away, for not accepting being treated as less than. Your father would be proud too. The mention of my father hit unexpectedly hard. He died when I was 12, a heart attack at 38 while he was working his second job. He'd been a warehouse manager during the day and a security guard at night, killing himself to provide for us, to give us a chance at something better. Dad would have loved knowing you're working for Mr. Harrison, I said. Would have been so excited about the projects I'm working on, the buildings we're developing, all of it. Tell me about your work, my mother said. I realized during that confrontation that I don't know enough about what you do. You've always downplayed it when I ask. So I told her. About the mixed-use development we were currently working on in the downtown area. Affordable housing units combined with retail space and a community center. About the project I was coordinating to renovate an old factory building into loft apartments and artist studios. About Robert's vision for development that actually helped communities rather than displacing them. We don't just build for profit, Robert added. We build for people. Every project includes affordable housing components, community spaces, local business support. Sam has been instrumental in figuring out how to make these projects financially viable while still serving the community. He's got a talent for seeing possibilities that others miss. That's because I grew up in those communities, I said. I know what people actually need versus what developers think they need. I know the difference between gentrification that pushes people out and development that brings people in. Exactly, Robert said. That perspective is invaluable. It's why I hired you and why I've continued investing in your career. You understand something that many people in our industry never grasp, that the point of development should be making people's lives better, not just making money. My phone buzzed again, this time with a call from Jason. I stared at his name on the screen, not sure if I wanted to answer. You should take it, Robert said. Hear what he has to say. You don't owe him forgiveness, but you might want closure. I excused myself from the table and stepped out into the garden. It was a beautiful day, the kind of June afternoon that felt like a gift, warm but not hot, with a light breeze and the smell of flowers from the restaurant's garden beds. I answered the call. Sam? Jason. I'm sorry. His voice was rough, like he'd been crying. I'm so sorry, for everything, for not defending you, for asking you to step aside, for letting Melissa treat you like that. Are you calling from your wedding? The wedding is postponed. After you left, things fell apart. Half the guests from our side walked out. Melissa's parents are freaking out about the bills. The photographer refused to continue working. It was a disaster. He laughed bitterly. I'm in a bathroom at the cathedral, hiding from everyone, calling you because I don't know what else to do. What do you want from me, Jason? He paused. I want my brother back. I want to undo the past 3 years of being a shitty brother. I want to go back to when we were kids and we had each other's backs no matter what. But I know I can't. I know I've damaged our relationship, maybe permanently, but I'm sorry. I need you to know that I'm sorry. I didn't say anything. I wasn't sure what there was to say. Mr. Harrison was right, Jason continued, about all of it. I've been treating you like you were less than, like you didn't matter, because I was embarrassed about where we came from. I thought if I could just become someone different, if I could marry into the right family and live in the right neighborhood and have the right friends, then I'd finally be someone important. But all I became was an asshole who abandoned his own brother. Yeah, I said. You did. Can we fix this? Can I fix this? I don't know. Right now I'm too angry and hurt to think about fixing anything. You chose them over me, Jason. When it mattered most, you chose people you've known for 3 years over your own brother. That's not something that gets fixed with one apology. I understand, but can I try? Can I at least try to earn your forgiveness? I thought about it. About the years of watching Jason distance himself, the family dinners where he'd make excuses not to come, the events he'd exclude me from, the subtle and not-so-subtle messages that I didn't fit in his new world. And I thought about today, about Melissa's cruel comment and his unwillingness to defend me. But I also thought about what my father would have said, about family, about forgiveness, about giving people chances to be better. You can try, I said finally. But it's going to take a lot more than words. You're going to have to show me, through actions over time, that you actually value me as your brother. That you're not just apologizing because there were public consequences to treating me badly. I will. I promise I will. He paused. What about the wedding? Should we try to reschedule, or should we just call the whole thing off? That's not my decision to make. That's between you and Melissa. After what she said to you, she apologized. It wasn't the world's most sincere apology, but she did it. And she's still the person you chose to marry. So you need to figure out if you want to go through with that or if today made you realize you're making a mistake. I think I am making a mistake, he admitted quietly. I think I've known for a while that Melissa and I aren't right for each other. We're from different worlds, and not in a romantic way. In a way where we have fundamentally different values. She treats service workers like they're invisible. She judges people by their clothes and their cars and their addresses. And I've been going along with it because I wanted to be part of her world. But after today, after seeing how she treated you and how her family reacted, I don't want to be part of that world anymore. Then end it. Call off the wedding for real. Figure out who you actually are and what you actually want, instead of just trying to be whoever you think will be most impressive. When did you get so wise? I've always been wise. You just stopped paying attention. He laughed, a real laugh this time. You're right. You're absolutely right. He took a breath. I'm going to go talk to Melissa. Tell her we need to call this off for real. And then I'm going to spend a long time figuring out how to be a better person and a better brother. Good luck. Sam? Thank you for walking out, for having the dignity and self-respect to refuse to be treated that way. You reminded me of something I'd forgotten, that where we come from isn't something to be ashamed of. It's something to be proud of. After we hung up, I stood in the garden for a few more minutes, letting the conversation settle. Then I went back inside to finish lunch with the people who actually valued me. Chapter 4. The Aftermath. The story of what happened at St. Augustine's Cathedral spread even faster than I could have anticipated. By that evening, the video had been viewed millions of times across multiple platforms. By the next morning, news outlets were picking it up, running stories about classism and weddings and the cost of cruelty. Some coverage was sympathetic. Groom's brother walks out after exclusion, and billionaire stands up for employee. Other coverage was more critical. Wedding crasher ruins ceremony, and entitled employee demands special treatment. But most of it was simply shocked fascination with the drama of it all, the theatrical nature of the confrontation, the perfect timing of Robert's entrance and revelation. My phone didn't stop ringing for 3 days. Reporters wanting interviews, podcasters wanting me on their shows, social media influencers wanting to discuss what had happened. I declined all of them. This wasn't a story I wanted to capitalize on or extend. It was just something that had happened, something I needed to process privately rather than publicly. Jason did call off the wedding. He and Melissa released a joint statement saying they'd decided to postpone their nuptials indefinitely to focus on personal growth. Translation. They'd broken up, but were trying to make it sound mutual and mature. He called me a week later to give me details. They'd had a long conversation the day of the wedding, after everyone had left, and they'd had to face the wreckage of what was supposed to be their perfect day. They'd realized they didn't actually like each other very much, that their relationship had been more about image and aspiration than actual compatibility, that the wedding had been more about throwing a party to impress people than celebrating a genuine commitment. I gave her the ring back, Jason said, paid her back for half the wedding expenses we'd incurred before Mr. Harrison withdrew his support. We're going to split the cost of the remaining bills, the venue fees, the cancellation charges, all of it. It's going to take me a year to pay off, but it's fair. Are you okay? I asked. Honestly, I'm relieved. I don't think I realized how unhappy I was until the relationship ended, how much I was performing being someone I'm not. He paused. I quit my job at the consulting firm, too. You what? I realized that job was part of the problem. The culture there, the values, the constant pressure to prioritize money and status over everything else. I wasn't happy. I haven't been happy in years. So I quit. What are you going to do? I don't know yet. I have some savings. I'm thinking about going back to school, maybe getting a teaching credential. I've always loved math, and I think I'd be good at teaching. He laughed. It'll be a massive pay cut from consulting, but after everything that happened, money doesn't feel as important as it used to. Over the following weeks, I started seeing Jason regularly again. Coffee meetings, lunch, eventually dinners with our mother. He was different, or maybe he was finally himself again. Less polished, less performative, more genuine. He asked about my work, actually listened to the answers, showed real interest in the projects I was coordinating. He also made amends. He reached out to Marcus and apologized for putting him in that position at the wedding. He called our cousins and other family members he'd been distant from and started rebuilding those relationships. And he spent time with our mother, helping her around the house, taking her to doctor's appointments, being present in a way he hadn't been in years. I've been thinking about something you said, he told me one afternoon over coffee. About how I chose them over you. About how when it mattered, I sided with people I barely knew instead of my own brother. Yeah? I realized I've been doing that my whole adult life. Not just with you, but with everyone from our old life. I was so focused on escaping where we came from, on becoming someone different, that I forgot the people who actually loved me. The people who knew me before I had money or status. And in trying to leave them behind, I left behind the best parts of myself. That's pretty insightful. I've been in therapy, he admitted, since the wedding, trying to figure out why I felt like I needed to be someone else, why I was so ashamed of where we came from, and I'm learning a lot about myself. Not all of it flattering, but necessary. I was proud of him for that, for doing the hard work of actually changing rather than just apologizing and expecting everything to go back to normal. Robert continued to be a steady presence in my life. He'd officially made me a junior partner in his company, which came with a significant raise and more responsibility. We worked together on the affordable housing project downtown, and I found myself learning not just about real estate development, but about how to be a leader, how to build something meaningful, how to use business as a force for good rather than just a way to accumulate wealth. You're going to run this company someday, he told me one afternoon as we were reviewing plans for a new development. Maybe not soon, I'm planning to stick around for another decade at least, but eventually, you have the vision for it, the values, the understanding of what we're actually trying to accomplish. I'm 26, I said. I barely know what I'm doing. No one knows what they're doing at first. You learn by doing, by making mistakes and fixing them, by listening to people smarter than you and applying their lessons. He looked at me seriously. I'm not saying this lightly, Sam. I've been building this company for 40 years. I want to leave it in the hands of someone who will continue that work, who will keep building for communities rather than just profits. I think you're that person. That's a lot of pressure. It's also a lot of opportunity, and you've never backed down from a challenge yet. About 3 months after the wedding that wasn't, I got a call from an unexpected source. Melissa. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity got the better of me. Sam, it's Melissa. I know I'm probably the last person you want to hear from, but I wanted to call and properly apologize. Not the forced apology from the wedding, but a real one. Okay. I've been doing a lot of thinking since everything fell apart. About how I treated you, about what I said, about the kind of person I've been, and I'm ashamed. I'm genuinely ashamed of my behavior. Why are you telling me this? Because I need to take responsibility. What I said to you was cruel and elitist and completely unacceptable. You didn't deserve that treatment. No one deserves that treatment. I was raised in a bubble where people are judged by their wealth and status, and I never questioned that until it blew up in my face publicly. Are you apologizing because you're actually sorry, or because there were consequences? She was quiet for a moment. Both, probably. I'm sorry because I hurt you, and I'm sorry because it cost me my relationship and made me face some ugly truths about myself. Is that a legitimate apology? I honestly don't know, but it's genuine. I appreciate you calling, I said, and I accept your apology, but I don't think we need to be in each other's lives. I understand. I just wanted you to know that I'm working on being better, that I'm trying to unlearn the prejudices I grew up with. It doesn't erase what I did, but maybe it means something that I'm trying. After we hung up, I thought about that conversation for a long time, about growth and change and whether people could actually become better versions of themselves. I wanted to believe they could. I wanted to believe that one public humiliation and its consequences could be a catalyst for genuine reflection and improvement. But I also knew that my forgiveness didn't require me to stick around to witness whether Melissa actually changed. That was her journey to make, and I didn't need to be part of it. 6 months after the wedding, our mother threw a small dinner party at her apartment, just her, Jason, and me, plus Robert, whom she'd insisted on inviting because he's family now. She cooked too much food, as always, and fussed over everyone, and seemed happier than I'd seen her in years. My boys, she said, raising her glass of wine. Both of you here together. Both of you doing work that matters. Both of you being the men your father would have been so proud of. To Dad, Jason said. To Dad, I echoed. We drank, and I felt something settle inside me. Not everything was perfect. Jason and I were still rebuilding our relationship, still working through years of hurt and distance. But we were trying, we were showing up for each other, and that was enough. Robert raised his glass next. To Sam, for teaching all of us about dignity and self-worth, for refusing to accept being treated as less than, for showing us that where you come from matters less than who you choose to be. Hear, hear, my mother said. As we ate and talked and laughed, I thought about the wedding that wasn't, about Melissa's cruel comment and Jason's moment of cowardice. about Robert's dramatic entrance and the confrontation that followed, about my decision to walk away rather than accept being treated poorly. I'd wondered, in the immediate aftermath, if I'd done the right thing, if standing up for myself had been worth the cost, the destroyed wedding, the ruptured family relationships, the public spectacle of it all. Now, 6 months later, surrounded by people who actually valued me, working in a career I loved, rebuilding a relationship with my brother who was finally willing to put in the work, I had my answer. It had been worth it, every single moment of it. Because sometimes the most important thing you can do is refuse to accept being treated as less than you are. Sometimes you have to walk away from people who don't value you, even if they're family, even if it causes a scene, even if it's difficult and painful and complicated. And sometimes, if you're very lucky, you find people who will stand beside you when you make that choice. People who will see your worth, even when you're not sure you see it yourself. People who will use their influence and resources not to control you, but to support you in being your best self. I'd found that in Robert. My mother had always been that for me, and Jason was learning how to be that again. That was enough. That was more than enough. That was everything.